My thumb hovered over the screen longer than it should have. Finally, I pressed send. I texted the family group chat. My surgery's on the 15th. Just need someone to drive me home. The words glowed back at me in that cold blue bubble, floating above the silence that had become so familiar. I set my phone down on the marble counter and exhaled, smoothing the sleeve of my silk blouse like it mattered. The apartment was quiet, save for the faint hum of the city outside my 10th floor window. Neon lights flickered across the glass, painting streaks of pink and gold over the dark hardwood floor. For anyone else, this would be a small thing, asking family for a ride. But for me, it was a test. A test of whether the people who shared my blood could show up for me in the simplest way. I poured myself a glass of water, the stem of the crystal cool between my fingers, and tried not to glance back at the phone. Still, every buzz from the city below made me flinch, tricking me into believing it was them, finally answering. It wasn't. My reflection in the window caught my eye, polished makeup, steady posture, a woman who looked put together. What the glass didn't show was the tightening in my chest, the gnawing fear that I would wake up from surgery alone, with no one waiting. I had built a life without them. But tonight, sending that message, it felt like opening an old wound. I was 19 the first time I realized my family didn't see me. Not really. It was a hot July evening in Ohio, cicadas screaming outside the kitchen window while my parents sat at the table, bills spread out like weapons between them. My older brother, Ryan, leaned against the fridge, smirking like always, the golden child who could do no wrong. I had just told them I'd been accepted into a journalism program out of state. I got a partial scholarship, I said, voice trembling but proud. If I take a part-time job, I can cover the rest. Silence. Then my father chuckled, a low, dismissive sound that cut deeper than any words. Journalism? That's not a career, Ava. That's a hobby. Ryan snorted, shaking his head. You'll drop out in a year. Just stay here, work at the diner. At least then you won't embarrass yourself. The lump in my throat swelled so fast, I could hardly breathe. My hands, gripping the edge of the table, shook violently, but no one noticed. No one cared. My mother finally spoke, but her words weren't comfort. Sweetheart, it's not realistic. You're not like... She stopped, glancing at Ryan, then back at me. You're not cut out for that world. That was the night I understood. I could scream, I could bleed, I could beg, and they'd still never look at me the way they looked at him. Later, I sat on the porch steps, moonlight soft on my skin, tears streaking down my face. That's when my grandmother, Eleanor, slipped outside. She was the only one who ever saw me. She sat beside me, handed me her old silver fountain pen, smooth, heavy, engraved with her initials. Write it all down, Ava, she whispered, her hand warm over mine. When the world tries to silence you, put it on paper. One day, those words will carry you further than their voices ever could. I still remember the way her lavender perfume clung to the summer air, the way her eyes held mine with fierce belief. That pen became my anchor, and that night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to stay invisible in that house. I would leave, even if it meant standing alone. And I did. Leaving Ohio at 19 felt like stepping off a cliff with no parachute. I had a duffel bag, $300 from waitressing, and that silver fountain pen tucked inside my journal. The bus ride to Chicago was long and sleepless, but with every mile, the weight of my family's voices grew quieter. The city wasn't kind at first. My apartment was a shoebox above a laundromat, walls so thin I could hear the spin cycles through the night. I worked shifts at a coffee shop, then took the late train to evening classes. Some nights, I'd fall asleep at my tiny desk with my cheek pressed against half-finished articles, the ink from my pen smudged across my skin. Doubt was my shadow. Every rejection letter from an editor, every no thanks email chipped away at me. But then came Margaret Blake, my journalism professor. She was sharp, silver-haired, always in pressed blazers, the kind of woman who didn't waste words. One day after class, she slid one of my essays back across the desk, her red pen marking only 3 words in the margin. You have voice. I didn't realize it then, but that was the spark. Margaret started mentoring me, pushing me to pitch articles beyond campus. "They'll underestimate you," she warned, sipping black coffee in her office. "Good. Let that fuel you." And she was right. Editors looked at me, a young woman with no connections, and saw a risk. But I kept writing. I covered neighborhood protests, underfunded schools, the quiet resilience of single mothers working 2 jobs. I learned to listen, to capture truth in ink. The first time I got published in a local paper, I cried in the bathroom of the coffee shop. It wasn't glamorous, wedged between the scent of burnt espresso and cleaning supplies, but it was mine. That $20 paycheck felt like a crown. Years blurred into long nights and relentless deadlines. Slowly, my byline appeared in bigger outlets. Then came a freelance contract. Then another. By 26, I wasn't just surviving, I was building something. I launched my own digital media platform, a space for voices like mine. Overlooked, underestimated, but unshakable. What my family knew, if they bothered to ask, was vague. I told them I was working in media, nothing more. When Ryan bragged in the group chat about his new truck or Dad updated us about the mortgage, I sent emojis, polite replies, and nothing else. It was easier to let them believe I was still scrambling. But behind the curtain, my life was shifting. Investors noticed. Readers grew. My small platform turned profitable. I bought an apartment, not a shoebox this time, but a place with floor-to-ceiling windows and room to breathe. Sometimes, I'd stand in the quiet of that space, barefoot on cool marble floors, staring out at the skyline. I had built this. Without their approval, without their help. And yet, I never told them. Not because I was ashamed, but because some wounds never fully heal. Letting them see my success felt like handing them power over me again. So I stayed silent. My victories were mine alone. Until the night I sent that text about my surgery. The morning of my surgery, I sat in the hospital waiting room, hair tied back, a thin gown peeking out from under my cardigan. I hadn't expected them to show up. Honestly, I had braced myself for silence. But then I saw Ryan stride through the double doors, his baseball cap pulled low, followed by my parents. For a split second, I couldn't breathe. "Thought you need a ride," Ryan said flatly, like it was some casual favor. I nodded, grateful and wary all at once. They didn't ask about the surgery itself, didn't ask if I was scared. Still, when I woke up groggy hours later, Ryan was there, tapping his phone impatiently, and Dad was flipping through a magazine like waiting for me was a chore. The ride back was quiet, just the faint hum of tires on the freeway. When Ryan pulled up to my building, he squinted at the address. "This can't be right," he muttered. But it was. I punched in the code, and the glass doors slid open, revealing the sleek lobby. White marble floors reflected soft light from a chandelier above. The receptionist greeted me by name, asking if I needed the concierge to carry anything. My parents exchanged a look, confused. The elevator ride to the 10th floor felt like a countdown. Ryan leaned against the mirrored wall, eyeing me. "So, you live here?" "Yes," I said simply. When the doors opened, I stepped into my apartment. Open space flooded with sunlight, tall windows overlooking the city skyline. Elegant but warm, a cream sofa with velvet cushions, bookshelves lined with titles, a desk with my grandmother's silver fountain pen in its holder. Fresh flowers perfumed the air. They froze in the doorway. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. "Ava, this is yours?" I walked to the kitchen island, set down the hospital bag, and poured myself water. Every inch of it. Ryan laughed, but it was nervous, uncertain. "What are you, renting this place from some guy?" "No," I said, meeting his eyes. "I bought it. With the money I earned running my own media company." Silence. Heavy, almost physical. My father's magazine was still in his hand, forgotten. "You're what?" Mom stammered. "I own a digital platform. We publish stories that matter. It's grown. Profitable. Investors, sponsors, readers across the country." I gestured around me. "This is the life I built. The one you said I wasn't cut out for." My father blinked like I'd spoken another language. Ryan's jaw tightened, his bravado slipping. You mean to tell me all those years you were just pretending to scrape by? He asked. I wasn't pretending, I said softly. I just didn't tell you. Because I learned a long time ago that no matter what I achieved, it would never be enough for you. So I stopped looking for your validation. The silence stretched, thick and raw. Their eyes roamed the room, the framed awards on the wall, the signed first edition books, the photographs of me interviewing people whose names they actually recognized. Proof stacked higher than their disbelief. Finally, my mother sank onto the sofa, her voice trembling. We had no idea. No, I said, my tone firm but not unkind. You didn't want to have an idea. The power shift was undeniable. For the first time, I wasn't the invisible daughter, the underestimated girl. I was the woman standing in front of them, holding all the cards. And they knew it. I let the silence hang for a moment longer, then set my glass down on the counter.
My hands didn't shake this time.
You know, I began, my voice steady. I didn't send that message just because I needed a ride. I wanted to see if anyone in this family would show up for me. And here you are, not because you cared, but because curiosity got the better of you. Ryan's face reddened. That's not fair. I came, didn't I? I tilted my head. You came like it was an errand. Like I was a chore. That's not showing up, Ryan. That's convenience. He shifted uncomfortably, but didn't argue. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears. Ava, we didn't know you were hurting. We didn't know you were this successful. That's the problem, I said softly. You never asked. You never listened. For years, I tried to earn a seat at this table, and every time, you pushed me away. So I built my own table. And now, if you want a place at it, there are conditions. Their heads lifted, startled. I drew a slow breath. First, respect. You don't dismiss my work, my choices, or me. Not in jokes, not in silence. If you want to be in my life, you speak to me as an equal. Dad's brow furrowed. He'd never been told terms before, not by me. Second, I continued, you start taking responsibility for yourselves. Ryan, you've coasted long enough on being the golden child. If you want help from me, you'll show me you're building something of your own. I won't bankroll excuses. Ryan's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. For once, he looked small. And third, I said, my voice softening just slightly, you let go of the toxic patterns we've lived in for years. The constant comparisons, the dismissals, the silence. If you can't let those go, then I can't let you in. The room was heavy, but I didn't feel crushed by it anymore. For the first time, I was breathing freely. My mother finally spoke, her voice fragile. And if we try, if we do better, then there's space for healing, I said. But it will be on my terms. I'm not bending myself in half anymore just to fit into this family. Dad leaned back, rubbing his temple. You sound just like your grandmother. A warmth spread in my chest at the mention of Eleanor. She was the only one who ever saw me, and she taught me to never silence myself again. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ryan let out a long breath, muttering, Guess you're not the little sister I thought you were. No, I agreed, holding his gaze. I'm not. And if you want to know me now, you'll have to meet me here, not drag me back to who I was. The balance had shifted. They knew it, and so did I. The days that followed were quiet, almost too quiet. I half expected my family to retreat into old habits, silence, avoidance, pretending none of it had happened. But little cracks of change began to appear. Ryan texted me first. Not a brag, not a sarcastic comment. Just a photo of a job application confirmation screen, followed by, Figured it's time I start pulling my weight. For him, that was monumental. My mother called a week later. Her voice was softer, cautious. I've been reading some of your articles, she said. You write beautifully, Ava. I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. I heard the sincerity in her tone, shaky, unfamiliar, but real. Even my father, the man who once dismissed my dreams with a chuckle, showed up one Saturday with a toolbox in hand. Thought I'd fix that squeaky cabinet hinge for you, he muttered. Not an apology, not exactly. But I understood what it meant. For him, that was the closest thing to saying he was proud. I didn't forgive them overnight. Some wounds don't close that quickly. But I allowed space for something new, a tentative truce, shaped on my terms. One evening, after they left, I sat at my desk, the city lights glowing beyond the window. My grandmother's silver fountain pen rested in its holder, catching the lamplight. I ran my fingers over the engraving, remembering the night she placed it in my hand. When the world tries to silence you, put it on paper. She had been right. That pen had carried me through rejection, loneliness, and nights I thought I wouldn't make it. It was more than metal and ink. It was proof that someone believed in me before I believed in myself. I glanced at my phone on the counter. The family group chat still sat open, my last message glowing faintly. My surgery's on the 15th. Just need someone to drive me home. I smiled, closing it without typing anything new. Because now I understood something I hadn't before. I didn't need someone to drive me home. I had already found my way.